Space is a system of systems. Every orbit, every link, every sensor feeds something. A decision, a strike, a maneuver. But systems don't integrate themselves. Someone has to make them link. The Space Systems Integration Office exists for that reason. As the Space Force scales, adds partners, adopts new technologies, and faces adversaries who are actively trying to break those connections, the burden of integration is no longer a background function, it's a warfighting imperative. Colonel Strizzi sits at the center of that problem. As Director of Enterprise Integration, he's responsible for making sure the pieces of a vast, distributed, and constantly evolving space enterprise don't just coexist. They actually work together. We sat down to find out how. I'm Bill Woolf, and this is Spacepower. Colonel Strizzi, thanks so much for being with us today.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks.
And really what I want to talk about, obviously, is this new directorate that stood up, Space Systems Integration Office, and really what that's all about. Before we get into all of that discussion and educate folks about what the office is doing, let's talk a little bit about your background. So can you tell the audience how you started your Space Force career and really where you've been and what landed you at SSIO?
Okay. Thanks again for having me. It's a pleasure here to share. So I'm a 32 and a half year colonel, which, for some people that means I'm just not promotable anymore. Right. But I also, have seen a lot, and it was a bit of pleasure and joy to serve a couple extra years, and do some impactful things. So, but it all started as the little second lieutenant Strizzi, right, who wanted to be an astronaut and do something with satellites and rockets. So that's why I did ROTC program, and I started off out at SMC, Space Missile Center in Los Angeles as a young lieutenant. Had some good experiences there on missile warning systems, and then I ended up moving and working at the National Reconnaissance Office for about 15 years on a whole variety of programs. They sent me to grad school. I stayed in. I remember at one point, just for our young Guardians out there, that I was at my 4-year point decision. I'm like, well, I'll apply for this grad school and I'll see, if I get picked, such a long shot. If I get picked, then I'm going to stay in. Right. But if not, there's so much going on. The late 90s. So I decided to go for it. And so the message there is you never know until you try something, right? You never know what's going to happen in life. But I got picked up. And then I was a career guy after that. So I did a whole bunch of NRO work, great experiences there, multiple locations. Then I finally came back to Los Angeles as a lieutenant colonel to be the material leader and chief engineer for the Delta IV rocket system program. So I was part of the launch organization, and my buddies were doing Atlas and I'm doing Delta, and we have this one contractor with both rockets, and along comes this upstart company, SpaceX. What are they doing at that time? So we're launching some pretty serious stuff, right? Back then, and the Delta IV Heavy was this amazing rocket to work on. Had some great experiences, learned a lot. But then I got tasked to help bring on SpaceX into the family. And that was a real joint effort between us and industry. Like, we had to partner with them. I called it full contact, shoulder to shoulder engineering.
Yeah.
And we did it together. It was a journey, but we got through getting the SpaceX system certified, and we got the Vulcan rocket started as a program. We got the New Glenn rocket started as a program, as a launch system. And then I thought I was going to retire by that point. I was colonel. I thought I had all the best jobs. I'm launching rockets and new launch systems, new engines. But the leadership asked me if I wanted to stay on a little bit longer and help tackle an even bigger technical challenge, which is integrating and stitching together all of our space enterprise, satellite systems, ground systems, space access systems, and making sure that they truly work together when they're needed, not just on a good day, but every day, and especially on the bad days.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's where it brings us to today. I'll talk more about some specific things that we're doing at SSIO, but that's kind of the path that led me here.
Perfect. Thanks, Colonel Strizzi. Appreciate that background. At a high level then, why was SSIO created, and what problem does SSIO solve?
Yeah, and as I alluded a little bit with the last part there, we have an array of very capable space and ground systems. Some of them are very exquisite, expensive, small in number, large in capability, and they do a great job. And they're tied to some of their specific ground and user ends of their system. New things come online, and some take longer than others, and especially as we enter like proliferated satellite age, and you have to stitch together and connect all of the old and the new things together. And our missions have evolved. Along the way of this journey, the Space Force itself is born as a unit, as an organization, more tightly coupled now with our users and combatant command folks we're going to present forces to. So when we look at all that, singularly, there are systems doing a great job. And there's new things coming along, like I said, but they have to really work in an end-to-end fashion. That's where SSIO comes in, because you don't know what you don't know, truly. I know it's a catchphrase, but so we're looking sensors and sense making, kind of at this end of a mission thread. The C2 in the middle, which is actually C5I. Those are talking about not just command and control, but communications, computers, cyber, intelligence, and then the effectors on the other end, right? And the effect making. It's not always about direct effects. Sometimes your effect is preventing another effect. So all that has to tie together, and there has to be a feedback loop. And it's all another framework people use to talk about that is the find, fix, track, target, assess, et cetera. But it's all the same. And we do that formally in a rigorous, repeatable system-to-system engineering process. So you can crank through multiple mission threads or kill chains in some parlance. But I like to think of it as mission threads because it's not always about that. So the first 18 months of kind of the newly reformed SSIO, as we've evolved to focus on those type of things, we went through about 4 specific mission threads. These are lots of subject matter experts and interaction with the whole community, all the different PEOs. We work directly for Mr. Ainsworth, the service acquisition executive. So it's not just for the LA SSC type of programs, but also Space RCO and Space Development Agency programs and a couple other partners. So we're looking at all of that, everything that's in the SAE's portfolio to make sure it all works together. Some of those things were, as you can imagine, not ever designed to work together. But our customers and combatant commands and other users are counting on it working together, and not just, like I said, not just on the good days, also on the stressing days.
Sir, thanks for that. For folks who may not understand the complexity of this, and you just talked about the entire portfolio, can you describe for folks just generally how many programs are we talking about?
Well, let's see. To give a little sense of the scale, these were from the 4 kind of hand cranked ones that we just did to kind of set the foundation for how to do this. A set of those had 900 individual interface connections between, think of it as the box or rack level, right? And some of those are within, say, one PEO's portfolios, but there's definitely connections to others.
Right.
And by the time you go sensing, sense making through the C2 all the way out to the affecting, I've seen up to 4 or 5 PEOs and mission partners, or not even our own PEOs, who have a role to play in that. And then throw in some other type enterprise-wide capabilities like TT&C, right? What's the capacity versus demand in peacetime and wartime for that, right? I can't answer that question in this conversation, but there's specific answers that the leaders need to know about, and we can make decisions about how we're going to utilize them. So that one example had 900 individual connections.
Wow.
We went through and found out that some things that, in an ideal world, you've designed all the interfaces correctly over the years. Remember, some of those programs, pieces of those 900 were started maybe, let's say, 10 or 15 years ago as programs. Others might have just become a program of record last year. Some things are coming on in batches or blocks or waves with new capabilities, and they have to take care of the legacy connections as well as some of the new connections. If it's perfect, it all works great. And you can trace the information and data flow and decision-making and operator actions. But of course, nothing's ideal. Doesn't always work perfectly. May work fine on certain, let's say, non-contested peacetime scenarios and situations and training. Maybe not so much when it's stressful, right? Or at scale or speed.
Right.
So we're able to do all that analysis and lay all that out and actually just discover things that were not even known before. So some of the things we found were things that people thought did not need attention.
Yeah.
And it turns out that they do. So that was like some of our first little victories.
Right.
They were able to do that. And we're delivering like really specific technical interface products. Like these are like requirements, maps that go through that whole, like say 900 items. Remember, that was just for 4 specific things. We're talking about
Right.
space superiority. I'm sorry, it was 6 altogether. Space superiority, some specific protect and defend activities, and a very specific EW
Gotcha.
system. So, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, if you go through the JSOP, Joint Space Ops Plan, and you look at what the priorities are for U.S. Space Command and the priorities for CFC, Combat Forces Command, and then all our other individual theater priorities that we're trying to support, it's more than just 6.
Right.
So we have a lot of work to do.
No
And
kidding.
that's where some of our tools and innovative approaches are going to come in, which we'll talk about it throughout this discussion.
Got it. So you just talked about the process and how many integrators essentially there are through the programmatics of it. What if you don't get the integration right?
Well, we're living right now with the systems we have where the integration is as good as it can get when you have individual silos of excellence that are executing brilliantly with what they were set up to do when the programs were either started, programmed, budgeted, competed, right? And you basically, you have that kit, and as we deliver them and ops accept, and we work off maybe some either discrepancies or things that are found, they work those, to try to maybe think of it as a Band-Aid. Hate to use that word, but it really is like, we need a fix now to make sure something connects or some information flows. That's not going to survive stressful speed and scale. So frankly, we are not effective as a space enterprise if we can't discover and then go fix and mitigate these things. I think of it as you have 2 big knobs or dials you can use for this. One is discovery. I used to use this approach when I did launch systems as well. It's discovery. How much do you know and learn about your system, whether it's a satellite and ground or rocket system, or it's a system of systems and a mission thread, right? How much do you know? You have to turn over a bunch of rocks. You've got to really dig and see what's connecting to what. If you don't do that, it's not necessarily high risk or broken. You just don't know. It's unknown. It's uncertain. It's undefined. And how do you make some, I'll just say life or death decisions, or just permanent and non-permanent effects decisions for your space systems if you have unknowns? Like you need to have some kind of way to quantify the capability and then the risk of it happening or not happening the way you have planned. So you have discovery, how much do you know? And then you have decisions about what do you want to mitigate. Just because you discover something, hey, there's a latency between this part of the mission thread, we got to fix that. Well, okay, well, hang on. Do we need to fix that? There's probably a bunch of things we might need to fix, right? So you try to say, can we, is this acceptable for certain phases of operations? Maybe we only need to fix or mitigate it in a certain threat environment that maybe hasn't been realized yet. So maybe we can phase that. So we get to make informed decisions about investment, about training, about when things come online, space versus a ground system, the timing for them to be delivered together or separately, when to connect old and new things, when to spend effort on older legacy systems when maybe something new is right around the corner. And we've all been there when they're like, hey, you don't need to upgrade that because next year they're going to deliver this whole new thing. Okay. Well, then next year comes, you're like, hey, where's my new thing? Oh no, it's just coming. It's going to be even better, but you have to wait a little bit for it. Well, wait, I had this old thing that I could have fixed that and I could be using it, better. But you told me not to. Yeah, you get the new one. And you do that enough and then you're like, okay, now I'm stuck. I've got stuff on the old systems. I got things on new systems, maybe. And I really want to just get to the newer things, but sometimes you have to bridge the connection. You got to decide if you're going to make that investment or not. So anyways, it's all about knowledge and what you know, and then you can make informed decisions.
Got it.
Hope that helps. Sorry, I kind of beat that one a little bit.
No, that's great. How did you structure SSIO to ensure it can effectively integrate across such a complex space enterprise?
Well, that is a great question. I've lived through 3 reorgs, or as I like to call them, re-optimizations. Where we have unleashed the power of our workforce.
Yeah.
And that's not just a phrase, because we really have done that at this point. But it's taken us three tries. And we're never perfect, but we're better than we were. And we see that every day. We decided to focus on a pretty large divisions, or 3 divisions in this director. We're a Delta equivalent type of office. One is very focused or exclusively focused on those mission threads, end-to-end, sensor, C2, effector, and all the partners involved. And we work with all the existing programs of record. Like, we don't have our own programs to go fix and plug and connect things. That's not our job. We're going to help the PEOs and the PAEs make those either fixes or prioritize the work that they do, right? And now, and as they're able to trade some things in their portfolio, that enables us to say, hey, if you do this one thing, you're gonna fix or reduce risks or gaps in, say, 3 different mission threads. If you do this other thing, it's going to do a great job, but just in this one. So let's work with CFC and US Spacecom, for example, and see which ones we should put our emphasis on, because it's time, talent, and treasure, right? You got to decide how you're gonna play that.
Yeah.
So we have one team focused exclusively on that. Of course, and they also need tools and expertise. We have another division that's focused on technical governance. Because if you come through that process and you say, hey, I now have these 900 requirements, and when I go through that, I can specify some key things like, let's talk about information and data latency across all those systems, which I know things we've all had experience with. Well, just because you've done a good job defining something in your silo of excellence program, no one may have ever specified how things have to connect together from just, say, latency standpoints, among other things, quality and control of the accuracy and precision, et cetera. So we could specify that. We got to bring that into governance then, because otherwise it's the other, if it's just a briefing or it's a paper or it's a finding of something, right? What does that mean? So we've set up a structure with engineering review boards, CCBs, and an enterprise integration board that we chair. Actually, Mr. Haywood, as the senior advisor to the SAE and our HQE officer leader, he chairs that one. And we bring things to say, hey, we're going to take this particular requirement, let's just use latency as an example, and put that into, it's voted, it's approved, it's now governance, it's the law of the land for the space enterprise. And if you're going to plug into this particular mission thread, you have to be able to support these requirements. If you're already in it and you're not supporting your piece of that requirement, we need you to adjust your program. Otherwise, I can't have effective capability for the warfighters or for our customers. So we do that governance piece. That's another division. And then the third one, sorry to be a little long-winded here, is about some true enterprise-wide capabilities you need to be able to do the first 2 sets of work. So we're talking about digital ecosystem with AI-enabled smartness, and to help us do our job at speed and scale so that the rest of the enterprise can do its job at speed and scale. Like I said, we can't hand crank 6 mission threads every 14 months and expect it'll be 20, it'll be another career for Strizzi by the time you get through going through all those. And then it's all stale at the back end. So we need to be able to do that at a much faster rate. And it's complex. I mean, we had to feed, like I said, enough material into our own internal gonculator to crank out 900 specific requirements. And some people might be scratching their head like, okay, that sounds like that's a little micromanaging, overkill, or did you invent stuff along the way? No, every one of those 900 things are actual validated formal requirements that came through the old requirements processes and were part of programs of record spread out among about 5 PEOs and 2 other partners. They were already, we didn't invent any of them. The only one we invented or made up, the one we developed was stitching together something like a latency requirement that had never been articulated before. But you had to lay out all 900 to even see that. So we need tools and smartness to help us do that better. We're attacking the crypto and cyber problems as well with this other third group, as well as industrial base and supply chain. Like that's become, it's always been a concern to various degrees of attention. But even now, like we are literally in the middle of industrial base and supply chain warfare. It's happening. We're living it. We're seeing it in our systems as they're being developed. We're seeing it as we're projecting down, as we dig through the multiple layers below a prime into their suppliers or into how we're doing sustainment for some of our deployed systems. We're finding things and we need to be better. Again, it's about discovery. And then what do you do to mitigate it?
Yeah.
You want to have informed decisions.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yep.
And it sounds like a very big,
it's an interesting job. I mean,
Yeah.
I wouldn't, one of the reasons I was happy to stay on for a few more years was to really try to get our arms as a new space force, get our arms around this really big problem that no one else is really looking at.
Right.
So we're excited to do it.
Yeah. Which really leads into the next question is, what is the hardest part of getting multiple organizations, technologies, and partners to work together effectively?
I'll tell you, it's a challenge and a joy to be able to do that and interact so much with the wonderful, colorful personalities of all of our various leaders and programs. But this interesting thing is that I know all of them. I have worked with all of these wonderful leaders over the years to the point where, for me, at this point in my career, it's a wonderful and challenging experience. And I'm not going to say it's anything like, I don't know, uh, you know, program narrow-mindedness by anyone, or ego or protectorate of rice bowls or things like that some people talk about. It's more of these program managers and PEOs and the other senior leaders. They're really trying to execute what they've been, the Congress is involved, right? Because, there's been appropriations and authorizations to do certain things on certain schedules. The execution year apparatus of our leadership is trying to drive good performance and good responsibility to taxpayer dollars and to the capabilities that holding the contractor prime's feet to the fire. Like, you promised us in a proposal process that we accepted that you're going to deliver these things on this schedule. By the way, when I do those 900 requirement traces, I'm counting on things to show up at the right time with the right data ports and the right types of cables connecting them and the right information flowing. And when it doesn't happen like that, or the contractor has a problem, sometimes able to be foreseen, sometimes not, right? Life happens. This is hard business, but all of that has to work together. So that is where the challenge areas are, is because you have competing, it's not about the people or the programs, it's competing incentivized outcomes. Different parts of our engineering, acquisition, and operations and testing, enterprise have different incentivized outcomes, different phases of the life cycle. And saying that isn't a negative comment on it, that something's seriously broken. It's just, that's how things have evolved. That's how they are. I think it'll take some of the learning from what we're discovering and informing and more, I just want to say dialogue because that sounds like talking, but more like informed dialogue and direction from leadership. We're a young force. Like, we were built and created to do this type of stuff, right? Well, I'm so proud. That's why I stayed on, right? Yeah. I could have retired as some Air Force guy, right?
Right.
But these are hard problems, but we're more equipped than anybody to do it. Like, we have the talent, we have the drive and the passion. So we're going to make the change, right? And we're going to try to align those incentives that have driven different programs in different parts of our force, maybe not necessarily orthogonal paths, but not always aligned. We're going to get aligned, and industry and allies have to come with us. That's the other part of it too.
Yeah.
Like, it's a team sport.
Yep.
And so there's a lot of work to do.
Yeah. For those who don't know, could you walk us through kind of the entire end-to-end process from a innovative technology that's coming online, whether that's at a lab or it's through the front door, going into a program and then coming to SSIO where you're going to take a look at it and then provide information up to the higher headquarters?
Well, I would say that's a great question. Hang on. It's not quite so serial. So we'll talk about that aspect of it for a second. What are the pictures we use? And I'm not saying I wish I was given a briefing. That's okay. We can talk about it. It's actually better just to talk about it. But one of the visuals we use is a round gear that has some spokes or wedges on it. And at the top is the operational community.
Yeah.
And we're talking about the needs that are articulated, or the O plans and other things, like the capabilities that have to happen. From that, you can lay out what the mission threads need to be.
Right.
Now, some of them, and this has to talk with this, and these two things, whatever. So stuff has to happen. You do that at a very basic level, especially if it's an older, well-established either mission area or particular effect. Remember, this is sensors, C2, and affecting. You can see it could be simple or it could be complex. There could be multiple players. It could all be in one PEO, except for maybe the end effect, right? Or even maybe even so. Or it could be a mess, right, of everything. If it's a newer type of capability that's needed, it's going to have all sorts of gee whiz, newfangled stuff in there, a mix of old and new. Okay, so that's how you start off the process. The gear is the process. Yeah. This is where you get the repeatable, it's scalable, it's rigorous. In the middle of that, you do ops analysis. You look at those mission threads, you find gaps, you find risks, you find issues. This is the discovery part.
Yeah.
And then you get into your solution space. That's where maturing SMT and new ideas and, quite frankly, exploit, buy, build is really still a foundational set of what we use to look at solutions. What can I do? Sometimes I have near-term exploit buy type of activities, but I really might need to build something later. But I need to be able to have real integrated capability delivered in the near term, and maybe a longer term solution later. Sometimes we have to form those kind of solutions to the risk issues and the gaps. So that's where some of the new tech comes in. That's where some allied capabilities can come in. So right now we're maturing plans with the Commercial Space Office and the International Affairs folks, and obviously with Front Door and with SpaceWorks for some of the S&T side. Excuse me, and the new technology deltas, the things that were going to be stood up also in one form or another, about injecting the right mature technology to fill some of these risk issues and gaps. But in some cases, we also can't wait that long. So we'll still do that, but we have to do something sooner. So we're developing the integration pathways, how you integrate into the enterprise, allied, commercial, new tech, as well as fixes right now that a PEO could make by adjusting their current program. All of that comes with that authority from the SCE to direct enterprise solutions.
Right.
Okay. So then you round the horn on the wheel and you get to helping the PEOs do the things they need to do, because we're not a big, huge budgeted program with fixes that we make. The PEOs and the programs have to do the actual acquisition work and the execution, and then integrated assessments as you round the top of that gear. Integrated assessment, so you know that everything that we just did for one mission thread or an interconnected set actually works. Exercises, real testing, training of the operators, or adjusting what they're already doing in some way. And then you're back to the top, because now you have an operational capability back to the operator. Now, how long does that take? When you hand crank it for the first time, because you're establishing the process, that was 6 mission threads, about 14 months. Again, not scalable, can't go through our whole JSOB and everything else. So that's where some, automation, digital ecosystem, smart AI injection is going to have to help us work through all that. But we will be able to go through that cycle.
Yeah. Speaking of which, what is the digital ecosystem, including AI and machine learning? And how is SSIO leveraging it to transform how the space enterprise designs, tests, and delivers capabilities?
See, I set you up perfectly for that
sure
question.
You did.
Or we set each other up. That's all good. No, so like I said, we have to do those type of things.
Yeah.
There's no way we can do this. We can't hand jam it anymore. Let's see. So let's talk about digital ecosystems for a minute. Previously known as things like digital engineering and digital environments, and you throw around some MBSE and some digital twins and model-based this. The list goes on, right? But it's all good. Those are all parts of this. I joke a little bit, but they're all parts of a real deal. So now we view it as an ecosystem. The OTTI, Operational Training Testing Infrastructure, Colonel Klopstein, his group is responsible for actually procuring and implementing some of the aspects of that ecosystem, both for the capability development, code word for acquisition and engineering, as well as for the operational, the testers and the operators, right? He's going to have it all. So we helped set kind of the groundwork and the framework for that kind of architecture and what has to do what, and we're helping him execute, but he's actually doing that execution. So that was one thing. In the meantime, we're like, hey, we learned a lot in helping develop that and helping him be successful. We need that, as we just talked about how long it takes to hand crank 6 mission threads. So we're going to adapt some of those things for our own kind of mini ecosystem that still is federated with that and lives inside of it, because we have to have everything, the right level of fidelity, model sim and analysis, and being able to digitize and automate that gear and that process. And help us make really smart decisions about the truly proliferated set of sensors. I mean, to look at the array of sensors and sense-making ground stations that we have today, it's, I'll just say, roughly double what I kind of grew up with in some of the Air Force version of the pre-Space Force. And then I had a bunch of NRO experience too. So that set of stuff. Well, it's just exponentially growing when you get to these proliferated systems. And it's not like we're going to build a whole bunch of Space Force only ground stations. We're going to be leveraging a lot of commercial and a lot of the industrial base that we're already leveraging as we put these proliferated systems up there. And there's going to be a whole bunch of AI enabled autonomy. Else we are not going to have, a few thousand operators controlling those satellites, right? It's not possible at the speed and scale. And, you don't want that many humans in the loop. Right? We're just going to slow it down.
Right.
We are going to be the ones why it's not successful. So that's probably the primary drivers there to help address the question.
In a fast-moving conflict, and there's plenty of fast-moving conflicts going on, how does your work help leaders make better or faster decisions?
I think it's aligned with kind of the last topic that we just talked about, that you need the machine-enabled decision-making, whether you're presenting COAs for operators, helping them narrow down the choices, giving them good, automated information systems, giving them the abilities to make good decisions based on either limited or incomplete data, right? But to even make more of a point about what we're doing, we're going to give them a confidence that we've turned over enough rocks. We've discovered enough about a mission thread that they have confidence that they can execute that part of the JSOP. Or that if there's a known, say, weak area or just a seam that they know it's going to be fixed. And here's the schedule to get it fixed because we've discovered it and we've got PEO action, the SAE directed action to go fix it. So I think it's giving some confidence that we know how all the pieces of the enterprise work together, at least for certain mission sets. And by the time we're well under our way the next year or so, we'll have even more mission threads under our belt. And the more that we are able to produce very specific knowledge sets of this is what works and what doesn't, peacetime and conflict, here's the stressing points, we're going to go fix this one right now, we're going to fix this other one later. When this other new system comes on, it'll take care of that worry part. When we can lay that out and give the operational community a lot more confidence that we know what we're doing as we buy and deliver these systems and that they train to operate them. So I think that's one of the big ones.
Thank you, sir. The presidential budget just dropped, and we'll see how far it gets, and hopefully you get all that the president's asking for with regard to Space Force needs. Over $71 billion in requests. Can SSIO deliver on spending that budget if it's approved?
Well, thank goodness all of that is not for us to spend.
Right.
That's a lot of kit, and we need every last item in it, right? The challenge is going to be, like as you're alluding to, integrating that together.
Right.
Now, the good news is, as our new Space Force, and as we look to this blessing that's much needed, we have our eyes wide open about how interoperable and interconnected everything needs to be. The foundational work we did the last year and a half or so opened up a lot of the leaderships and the PEOs and their staff's eyes to, we do need to execute our programs, but we really need to be interacting, connecting it on a full contact daily sort of way to make sure it's all going to work together. So I think because we're launching with that open mindset, we have the best chance ever that we've had in our history to execute those dollars appropriately, quickly, effectively, efficiently on the right things at the right time.
Yeah, perfect. Over the next few years, what will success look like for your organization, and what are you most concerned about getting wrong?
Well, success will definitely look like SSIO has matured into a rock solid position, effectively delivering these integrated solutions.
Yeah.
And we have automated and the right speed and scale approach to be able to take on new items that are being built and delivered to the enterprise, allied and industry partners, seamlessly integrated. And I will be able to retire in peace and calm and serenity because I know that my work is finished finally. But only half joking. That is actually one of the measures of success.
Right.
I will feel very good about that. That's my personal goal. Also to make sure that we're truly training the next, sounds cliche, but the next generation of leaders, right? I am so proud to see a lot of the junior government and civilian and military workforce and contractor force that I've worked with over the years are now to the point where they're leading major sections of our enterprise. And I'm more than happy to be ready to stand aside and work for them in a different capacity, right? Because they've matured into the leaders take place behind us, as you know, as we grow up and in and out, right, in our service. So I'm looking forward to that. I think true integration of our allies with data sets, connections of information and data, passing back and forth, or at least in the appropriate manner, being exchanged or leveraged. I think that's going to be another measure of success. The right mix of pure commercial, and strong in industry-wide capabilities into more specifically tailored military capabilities. And I'm not talking about just something like combining elements on a spacecraft or something as mechanical as that, but there's truly data lakes, data pools, UDL constructs, other type of things. Some are more physical than others, and that has to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It just has to happen. It is a team sport, so that's going to be another measure of success. And I forget the last part of your question. There was something at the very end there. I think I missed something.
Well, what are you most concerned about getting wrong?
Oh, getting wrong. Well,
and really,
the easy answer is not doing anything I just said, but that's a cop out. That's a cop out question, a cop out answer. I think we can. Here's fun. Okay, here's a good story. Little story. We just did a formal climate survey for the organization. I said we re-optimized our structure 3 times. The survey came right in between 2 and 3. The second and third time, where we just started to get some of the third and final, those 3 divisions kind of laid down and functioning. So we were able to compare those results to the last 2 climate surveys. And these weren't just generic. We had tailored questions, and we were able to build out some specific questions. General improvements all around, especially in some areas that were of concern before about what are we really doing? We're trying to do too many things. We don't have all the right mix of talent. There's some of the older answers we got. So all that has been a very good, in a very good trajectory right now. So we're feeling good as leadership about that. About 2 areas that were still of a concern, still on a good trend, but those would be things that would be indicators of things I'm afraid would go wrong, right? Balance of just like, I want to say work-life balance. That's kind of a hand-wavy thing, but the balance of the emphasis on work items and the human condition of a workforce and stress. Like, we are driving our teams hard. I have 29 separate little funding actions and about 19 separate contracts because I have a collection of SMEs, subject matter experts, in order to do this kind of complicated process that has to be rigorous and repeatable for looking across the entire space enterprise. Managing those efforts, getting the right talent mix, engaged with government leadership. So it's not just, our collection of SMEs studying stuff. We don't do that anymore. We're very focused on finding problems and fixing them. There's a lot of stress, and I don't want to see the team, really burn out. Right. And I know that that's a concern for some of the ops tempo units, the same case. I've done that on the space ops side before. So that's a worry bead for me also. We just have to be attentive and as leaders, have to support and lead, right? We'll lead them through it.
What keeps you up at night?
Those things. And also the fact that our adversaries, which take many forms and many levels of maturity and different intents, they have a far different outlook about what the space domain is for and how it can be used or denied use for others. And that every time I get a threat briefing, I rethink some of my life choices. No, I mean, it puts us you on notice, right? And we don't want to be all doom and gloom about stuff, right? So sometimes it's hard to discern exact intentions, or you can't predict the future. But there's some worrisome things out there. I also think, complacency. I mean, I think there were a couple years throughout my career where we're like, yeah, we're the space part of the, just before the Space Force, right? We're the space part of the Air Force. Like we're kicking ass. We know exactly, can I say that? We know exactly what we're doing up there. No one even comes close. And then, of course, I was in the NRO for a number of years. And we're like, those Space Air Force guys think they know we know what we're doing. Right?
That's right.
So no one even come close to us. And that's not the type of world we live in now. And I think it's easy to, especially if we have a success, like, hey, we just brought on 3 new rocket systems. I'd like to see one of those other countries try that, right? Oh, wait, what was the launch rate in China last year? Oh my gosh. Right. So we got to be careful. Yeah. That's an area to be wary of.
Sir, integration is going to be critical to deliver capabilities at the speed of need. And it's so important that they created the Space Systems Integration Office, led by Colonel Strizzi. Sir, thanks so much for taking time. Really do appreciate it.
Oh, it was a pleasure. I enjoyed our conversation, and thanks for letting me do this.
The work happening at SSIO doesn't often make headlines, but if the Space Force wins in a contested environment, it will be because the enterprise held together under pressure. That's what today's conversation was all about. If you found this valuable, follow the show, share it with your colleague, and stay connected on social media. Follow SFA and become a member at ussfa.org.